So I'm very, very pleased to be here with you. I'm excited because we have actually both sectors. We have the public sector with Thomas Moser from the Swiss National Bank. Thank you very much for being here. And Romain, Romain Swertvaeger, who is from EY and on the private sector. And the idea for us today is actually to have a very quick landscape about pros and cons and on payment from a European, at large European perspective. And I would like to begin with you because you have actually two huge initiatives, Helvetia and Agora, that would fit in this perspective. So please explain to the public these two large initiatives.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So in order to, for the tokenized ecosystem to really go from a niche market to mainstream, it will need to have access to central bank money. So these projects are both about access to CBDC for the settlement of payments. And the first one is Project Helvetia, where we settle security transactions with CBDC. And the Swiss National Bank is providing the CBDC. We went through several stages that were experimental. But now, since this year, we are actually live on a fully regulated, supervised digital exchange in Switzerland. It's SDX, 6 Digital Exchange. And we are providing wholesale CBDC for the settlement of securities. We have issued so far about Swiss franc CBDC in the value of 800 million euros. We had several issuances, including one from the World Bank, so not just Swiss issuers. And recently we have also done, as the first central bank, a monetary policy transaction on SDX. We have issued a bill, our own bill, on SDX and withdrawn liquidity in the form of CBDC from the commercial banks participating in that platform. And we have just announced that we will now continue this, which is still a pilot, but it's live, it's in a production environment. We will continue it for at least 2 years and increase the scope over these 2 years.
Yeah, so it's really live.
It's the real thing. It's the real thing.
So we say always the central banks are late, but actually it's a live product. Actually.
Correct, yeah.
And then you have Agora, which is
Agora is a huge international project. 7 central banks are involved, 3 European ones, the Swiss National Bank, the Bank of England, and the European Central Bank, which will be, well, actually the Banque de France, which will represent the Euro system. And then we have 2 Americas, the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Mexico, and 2 from Asia, the Bank of Japan and Korea. And each central bank brings in 3 to 5 commercial banks. So it's a huge project with up to 30 commercial banks, 7 central banks. And the idea is that the commercial banks issue tokenized deposits that can be used by retail customers, and the central bank provide the CBDCs for the settlement between the commercial institutions. It's not officially stated, but it's really supposed to be an alternative to stablecoins. Because you have, with tokenized deposits, they are settled in central bank money. So the deposits are not transferable in the sense, like a stablecoin where the claim itself is transferable.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that actually Circle, as one of the big stablecoin providers, did apply to participate. So I don't know what yet the answer is, because it's supposed to be tokenized deposits, not stablecoins. But
so they don't see you as a competitor, but they want to be in part.
Exactly. I mean, they would like to have access to central bank money as well, but probably more in the form of deposits than in the form of CBDC, I assume. But
so we have we do have a bridge between the private and the public sector. We'll see it's a huge announcement actually to see that USDC might come in line with CBDCs. What do you think about stablecoins actually from a private sector?
First of all, it's always very interesting to see that countries such as Switzerland are always ahead, let's say, of the way in terms of adopting innovation, but also making sure that offers. It's not a stablecoin what you do with through Agora, but at least it's. I think it will bring additional value to cross-border payment. I think this is great to see that Switzerland is ahead of it. I think France might be the representative for the EU, so it's also good to see that the European Union is involving itself into this. And I didn't know for Circle. I don't know that Circle was trying at least to get in. But it's also a good point because you see what's happening with USDT and so on, and the impact it can have with the MiCA regulation coming in, and the impacts on stable coins overall. Because what we see, it's Switzerland is ahead. Europe is also having some actions, but Europe is regulating more. And with MiCA, what we see, and to come to the stablecoin question, with MiCA, what we see also some limitations for, let's say, financial institutions, private initiatives, because if you just take asset reference tokens, you see already some limitations for some specific case when you intend to use your stablecoin, your ART, as a mean of exchange. You have very limited, let's say, thresholds under which you can transact and under the circulation of the stablecoin. So
it blocks the liquidity?
Yeah.
So actually the regulation, which would be to give a sound system, is actually having this counter effect.
Yeah, so it might have a counter effect, at least for the private sector, it might have a counter effect, at least for ARTs, not really for EMTs, even though EMTs, we see that you need to be regulated, which is a good thing in a way, but you see what's happening with USDT at the moment. USDT might be somehow in Europe out of the markets because
we saw the announcement.
They are not regulated anywhere, or at least in I think they are not regulated anywhere even. So you see it will have an impact. So I think to see that Circle is joining the initiative is also a great point, because you see a mix of public sector, such as central banks, such as the Swiss central bank, but not only, but also private sector also trying to step in through regulation, but also participating with the public sector. And I think it will enhance further innovation, and it will help also, let's say, a big issue, which is cross-border settlements today, which is quite expensive and not really easy to execute. Probably it will I see it very positive in the way that it will improve also the direction we take and the efficiency of the markets. But at the same time, when you see what MiCA is trying to do, it's positive and negative at the same time, because you see some limitation restrictions and potentially also some entry barriers, which can be good. Not to be, innovation is good, but up until a certain point. But I think there will be limitations also through MiCA, also with circulation and so on. So stablecoin has a future, but it will be a mix between your initiatives and also through strong, and Circle might be one, strong private initiative, but also banking players are looking at it.
Yeah, so we see a bit like a tango between the regulation and the impediments, and at the same time trying also to be in this kind of Agora project with everybody at the same table at a international level. Actually, MiCA is European and Agora is international.
Yeah, Agora is international, so that's where it will bring value also, because you mentioned that the Japanese central bank is taking part of it, and it's also does the US take part of it?
And the US, correctly,
so,
Federal Reserve. Yeah.
So that's where it's quite positive. It's not the only initiatives, but it's one of the key ones.
And knowing that we have only 6 minutes left, I wanted also to do another question that is completely uncorrelated, but what are you now following the most in terms of new development of technologies? I would be very interested to see if it's still payments or if it's something else. Maybe Thomas, from a central bank perspective.
So currently I'm very concerned with the security of digital assets, including digital currencies. And I'm specifically looking into the quantum threat. So people developing quantum computers always tell me, don't say quantum threat, because quantum computers will also be doing a lot of good things, which is probably true. But the problem is that all digital assets and all digital currencies rely on public key cryptography, and it's very essential that you cannot derive the private key from the public key. But that's exactly what quantum computers will be able to do. Right. So you will lose your private key, and that's true for almost all cryptography implemented today, including for Bitcoin. And when your private key is gone, your money is gone. So I'm very much now interested in how do we protect against it. So when you usually ask people, what do you do against it? You get two answers. One is, we don't have quantum computers and we will not have them for a few years. I say don't rely on that, because if someone has a quantum computer, including a state actor, they would be very stupid to tell you that they have one.
Definitely.
And then second is they say, well, we just switched to post-quantum cryptography. And that's actually what we did in one of our projects, Swiss National Bank BIS. We replaced the usual digital signatures with post-quantum, the leading post-quantum cryptography. And what we found out, including IBM, who did it with us, and they are leading in that, they were surprised how poor the performance was after you replace that. So here again, the message is I'm very convinced that you can, with enough engineering, get the performance back to where it's supposed to be, but it takes probably, like with zero knowledge proofs, it probably takes 4, 5, 6 years. So again, here the message is better start today than tomorrow.
ZKP is also a big discussion, definitely. Romain?
For us, it's always a bit different. I can also speak on a personal aspect. I think I'm very keen also to look at more on the payment side broadly, what's happening outside of Europe, and also where European regulation also might, let's say, disable us in adopting, let's say, innovation in the payment sector. And I see that, in Asia in particular, they have some new payment technology, which is probably 5 to 10 years in advance ahead of us. And when you look at it, regulation is good in some way because it puts an entry barrier and it helps also to regulate an ecosystem. But I think few of the regulations we are, so data privacy in general, might also disable us in, let's say, adopting new technology and getting some delays in onboarding this new technology. In particular, when we see is it the best example? But when I see in China, for example, the ways you can pay just with your eye, your finger, whatever, I think it's also a way to simplify the way we live every day. But I think when you look at European regulation, I think we are still not there. So I'm quite keen also to understand what's happening somewhere else, where we are getting also, let's say, delayed in Europe, but not only in Europe, and why is that? And I think new technology is important in the development in the payments industry in particular. But now we are somehow in a period of time where regulation and technology still needs to find a balance on, the best way to remain compliant and also to make sure that companies are doing things in a compliant manner, but still not, let's say, preventing innovation to come ahead and still developing, potentially the big European players of tomorrow, because for now it's difficult to see who they will be.
It's interesting because I didn't know actually the answer of the two, and I found it really interesting that from a public sector, you are very keen on the technology and enabling the technology to ensure that actually you bring security to the market. And you suddenly, sometimes you see that your own probably clients and market participants are hindered by regulation to develop this kind of technology as well. So I think
not to give up, but it's to find other ways.
Ouais.
So it's, yeah.
So thank you very much. We are on time actually, which is amazing. Do you want to add something else, something to follow? Definitely, we will follow Agora.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I think the interesting thing of of regulation and technology is the most interesting things are happening in decentralized finance. But that's most difficult to regulate, and there's a big danger that it's regulated out of the market. And I think how to get that together is really a challenge.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And on my side, I will follow very carefully what the developments with CBDCs, Agora, and so on, and other initiatives, because I think it will probably bring in the next few years big technological development, but also a big change in the way we consume and use payment today.
Yeah, definitely. If you combine the CBDCs and the stablecoin, let's say, and then apply to DeFi, that's gonna be
exactly. It can be huge. Yeah. It will be challenging, but it can be huge as well.
Thank you very much for being here. We look forward to meet afterwards. They are still here, so you can still ask questions on stage. Thank you very much.